In general, there's a huge population in the U.S. who are incarcerated. And within the Jewish community, there is this kind of myth that people from good Jewish homes don't commit crimes. Oh, there must be something wrong with these families. They're compliant, they're complicit, they're enabling. These are not black and white stories, they're complex stories. People do rebuild their lives and are capable of redemption. And people don't give them that chance.
I think I'm just like any other mother, is you just want the best thing for your kid. And then I'm afraid the prisoner may be in prison, but in essence, the whole family is.
For every incarceration, there's 8 to 10 people that don't go to prison that are affected. That's the average that the Bureau of Prisons has put out.
They undergo the stresses of court, of their child in prison, of the reentry. And at the same time, they have anxiety, guilt.
Me being incarcerated, the court dates, dealing with everything that was going on with my father, fighting with insurance, just so much going on. And I could see how draining it was.
At some point, it becomes just really, really burdensome to just listen to someone that is barely able to speak, and just to keep the hope alive without inciting inappropriate hope, without saying things are going to be okay, because they're not necessarily going to be okay.
Everybody's affected. It's always in the back of your mind. It's there, it's with you all the time. And especially when you don't hear from them, you think the worst. You automatically think the worst.
Barbara is our youngest daughter, has always been accomplished, trilingual, piano, dancing, salutatorian, Northwestern University, Fulbright scholar, beautiful in every way you can think of. Barbara was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when she was in grad school, when she was about 30. And at the age of 32, she was incarcerated at Cook County Jail. She became mentally ill, and as a result of some of the behaviors that she engaged in, namely calling people at the direction of her delusions, she was charged with stalking.
Sheriff Dart recently said in the last few years that Cook County Jail is the largest mental health facility in America. That means that, and it was over 30%. You know, the schizophrenic, or they hear voices, or they have a bipolar issue, and they weren't being controlled medically.
One thing that I always have said from the beginning, from way back 20 years ago when my son was incarcerated, is for the huge majority of the people in there, they're not bad people. They're really good people with very bad judgment. And they're lonely and sorry and want to, make a positive impact in the world.
At the time, it was my late husband, Howard, our son, Caleb. Avery was the athlete of the family, soccer, travel, baseball, hockey. But, Avery did have some issues in school. He had some learning issues, which manifested itself in, juvenile behavior and, mischief and problems and drug usage.
In every synagogue and in every place, there are people with mental health issues and there are people with addiction issues, and it behooves them to address those issues, or else any of them are vulnerable to end up in the Department of Corrections. It's more common than people might think.
We had just gotten back from a family vacation in Spain, and we actually, he was on a pretty good path. He was working and he was going to school. Things were pretty good. We had our problems over the years, but we thought we were turning a corner.
I feel terrible for having put her and the rest of my family and friends and everybody that loves me and cares about me. I feel terrible for putting them through the situation, because at the end of the day, when I did something stupid, it didn't just affect me. It affected everybody in my corner, everybody that cared about me.
My husband, Howard, was diagnosed with ALS in July of 2013. When he was incarcerated, I think Howard knew what was going on. I mean, his brain was there. The hardest thing was to see those phone calls. I would put the phone up against his ear, and he would listen, and he would smile, and Avery would be saying his thing, and I think that was the worst.
there's tremendous financial stress associated with incarceration, and that goes beyond the legal fees, which can start at 10, 20,000.
And if it was the father going away, who was the breadwinner, then now the mother is near destitute, has to apply for public aid, has to try to figure out how to help him while he's inside, take care of the children, deal with the rejection from the community. I mean, we see really, really sad stories.
And we have people who have given up their life savings. They no longer have retirement savings. We have women working 3 jobs in order to provide food for their family in prisons.
Much to my shock, my husband was accused of an offense by another congregant's family in our place of worship. My husband went to jail. I couldn't pay his bail, and that's when Hinda stepped in. In the end, he was convicted. I felt ostracized from my place of worship. I lost many friends. Even my kids were looked down upon in school. Once, my car windows were broken. I didn't have a job and we were thrown into poverty. It was also hard managing the kids who were either sad, depressed, or angry, depending on their age. The Hinda Institute called me every week. It was great to have someone to talk to who didn't judge me. Hinda sent me money monthly while I found a low-paying job. While we are still struggling and rebuilding our lives as a family, I am grateful for the help of the Hinda Institute.
The other myth is that it could never happen to me. It's not my children.
I grew up on the North Shore, raised Jewish. No one would have thought. But unfortunately, I found myself in a situation that caused me to be incarcerated for 6 years.
Everyone needs to be aware that this problem is in their community. They need to be open to it. They need to understand what these families are going through and not fit them into these little black and white boxes that really don't capture what's happening with our families.
I think a lot of people are blind and naive to the possibility of that happening to someone they know, whether it's a friend, a family member. I went through it, and there's other people that have gone through it as well, are still continuing to go through it.
It's affecting people in your synagogue, in your community, that are being shunned, that are being pushed away, and they're experiencing a nightmare they never imagined they would ever have in their whole life.
Having someone incarcerated is not an easy thing to talk to anyone about. The common reaction is, well, it must be that you've done something wrong.
They experience tremendous ostracism and prejudice within our community, even more than other communities.
We had a number of neighbors that cut out the newspaper clipping that detailed Barbara's arrest, tuck it into our mailbox. We did not talk about it to anyone. A number of the people were people that used to come and sit at my table. And, I would like to tell them that hasn't changed, and we still need you, and we need your support, and we need you to not shy away, but to come and to open yourself up to us and to allow us to integrate back into the way things were.
Even more horrifically, this social ostracism and prejudice is even higher with children who are often forced to leave schools or other social programs. Recently, I was talking to one of our mothers whose husband was incarcerated. And they questioned whether the children could join, for example, a karate program because they were somehow contaminated by their father's crime.
Everything was normal until my mom called me to come downstairs, only to hear the words come out of her trembling voice, "We need to talk about your dad." I sensed something was horribly wrong, a shock to my 13-year-old self. My life would change forever. The news spread quickly about my father. His mugshot appeared on the news, not only humiliating my family and me, but destroying my father's reputation. I felt angry. My otherwise funny and outgoing personality faded. The story's report of his arrest emotionally and irrevocably impacted my sense of dignity and happiness. 6 weeks later, I stood on the bima as a bar mitzvah, the most important day of my life, and my father sat in prison. I dreamt my father would show up to be there and support me. I missed the connection we shared. He was an outgoing, boisterous, and funny father, and at one time, I was just like him. I still struggled when I think about my father and mention his name in public. I slowly began to acknowledge that it would take time for my family to adapt to his absence. I grew closer to my siblings, and together we navigated life without our father.
You can imagine the kind of disruption and stresses these children face, depression, anxiety, and we work with them because we don't want that cycle of recidivism repeated. We want them to be reintegrated into the community and accepted.
What I found with Hinda is a group of people that understood what it was like. You know, I was met with an outpouring of love and support and compassion that I really could not find anywhere else.
Support means everything, whether it's coming from family, whether it's coming from friends, or whether it's coming from an organization like Hinda.
Transforming darkness into light, that's like almost the whole purpose of creation. God created a world where there's evil, where there's denial of his very existence, and to go into the dark places and to reach into there and bring light and hope, that's a great accomplishment.
So there's an expression in the sayings of our fathers. It says, "It is not your job to finish the task, but nor can you desist from it." Every day I see small miracles. Maybe they're not big miracles, but I see people's lives changed. I see things happen that would never happen. And that's because we put in effort.
Do you love someone when they are only perfect and when they fulfill your wishes and your desires and when you can see yourself in them? Can I love you with your faults and with your wounds and with your scars?
Unconditional. I don't care what you did, you're a person and you deserve to be treated as such. Everybody deserves a second chance.
There's always another chance.
One person, that's big. You know, you can't save the world, but you can save one person in it, or at least make their lives a little brighter.
Can we use this to grow? Can we use this to grow in compassion? Can we use this to grow in our understanding of one another and our understanding of society? And could you understand that as much as you love someone, you cannot necessarily love them out of the system. You cannot love them out of mental illness, out of these failings. You have to love them through that. And it changes us, but it can change us for the better.